Hello, everybody. Welcome to Haiku Talk. I'm your host, Ben Ga, your friendly neighborhood haiku poet. And today we're going to be taking a look at a Senryu from the latest issue of Wales Haiku Journal. This one comes to us from Earl Livings with the first line of The Airport. With that said, you know what time it is. Time to sit back, relax, grab yourself a tasty beverage, and let's Senryu. Welcome back, everybody. Good to be with you again for another episode of Haiku Talk. And this one we have a very nice Senryu. We're rounding the corner here of Valentine's Day here in 2024. And I don't know if that's what's getting me to this poem or some other things that happened in my life actually just recently today, which I'll get to in a moment, that really pulled me towards this in particular poem. But it's just a nice piece. Let's get to it, shall we? The poem goes like this. The airport. A hug that remembers other hugs. The airport. A hug that remembers other hugs. Delightful piece, no? I mean, what's not to like about this? It follows the fragment and phrase format, with the first line being the fragment of the airport, and the phrase being the hug that remembers other hugs. And I know we generally break things down line by line as we break up a poem, but in this case, it's really hard for me to separate the phrase into two separate lines. Because for me, a hug that remembers is a great line, but a hug that remembers other hugs, I just can't read those two things separately. Like, even when my eyes are reading the page, and that's usually why I break this down, because when you're reading line by line, you don't necessarily know what comes next. But sometimes a haiku is because they're so short and your eyes can take in more information than you might think. And the fact that those two hugs are so close together in lines 2 and 3, it's really hard for me to break this out into 3 lines to walk through what's happening. So let's just talk about it as fragment and phrase. So we'll start off with that first line, which is the fragment of the airport. The airport. ... By the way, ... Yes, and the ellipses there makes you want to slow down and pause and linger a while at the airport. And what a great first line. I mean, the airport, it definitely, first lines, you want to grab your reader, right? You have a small amount of time to grab the reader in a haiku or in Senryu, to lure them in and to establish something, a tone, a mood, something. And in this case, you have the airport, which puts you in a specific location and doesn't tell you the time of day, season, or whatever, and that's okay. The airport is just, man, if your brain doesn't go into overdrive thinking about things when you read those 2 words, the airport, and linger on that, then maybe you've never flown, which is possible. And obviously, I guess, I shouldn't say obviously, but those of us that were born before 9/11 in 2001 have a different memory of airports per se than people that were born after 9/11, where where not everybody can go to the hangar or go to the gate with you to see you off. And so I might be a little bit more nostalgic for this one than somebody born, in the 2000s that's reading this today. But the airport just conjures up so many memories, so many ideas, so many excitement, so many things, like airports. People are going somewhere, or they're returning home from somewhere. It's, you could run into anybody at the airport. I don't know. I used to, before 9/11, when airports were a little bit more open, friends and I would just go to the airport and just hang out, walk around, watch people, try to pretend like we were famous people and try to name drop, see if we can get people to look our way, thinking that we were somebody that we weren't. Just watching people arrive and hug and embrace and, people that have missed each other for a long time, or people that are departing and are saying goodbye. It's the film Love Actually waxes poetically great about Heathrow Airport. If you've never seen that movie, you can just YouTube that little bit, search for that, and you'll get the point. But the nice thing about those touristy lines, you're dropped right in a specific place, right in a specific location, and it allows you, the reader, to enter that and bring all of your own baggage with you to that space, and all of your own experiences and all of your own ideas, all of your own cultural knowledge about what these are. The specific airport that comes to your mind. I live in St. Louis, and Lambert Airport it does have a very specific architectural design. At least the main terminal does. But airports are amazing around the world. I've been to a number of really, really cool ones. So all of these things come flashing forward when you hit those first two lines and you linger on them a little bit. And then you're dropped into the phrase. And here again, I just can't split these out between lines 2 and 3 because they're so closely related. And again, those hugs are so tightly spaced on the page that I can't help but take these both in at the same time. And it's a hug that remembers other hugs. A hug that remembers other hugs. Hugs are great, aren't they? And we all know specific types of hugs. We remember hugs. The idea that a hug that remembers other hugs it's just a poetic. It's really poetic, but so deeply ingrained in us, so deeply human. Like I know, I've got some friends that are just great huggers, and you see them, they just wrap you in a big bear hug. And even if you're not a hugging person, and I can go either way, I can hug or I can shake hands, whatever. But that big bear hug is just awesome, And then I think of the way that parents hug you, if you're lucky enough to have affectionate parents that did hug you. My mom certainly used to hug me a lot more than my dad with the more masculine hug. But, now that my mom's passed on, I remember those hugs. And, I remember saying goodbye to people in the airports. I remember saying hello to people in airports. I remember wishing that somebody was at the airport with me to give me a hug. Or wishing that I could have given somebody else a hug at the airport, that I wasn't able to go with them and say goodbye. Or or if you're reunited after a long period of time and you get that familiar hug, that hug that you remember is now there again. There's so much that happens in this moment. Such a human moment. Something that's so just ingrained in how we connect and interact with people, with each other, especially in a very intimate, friendly or loving way, a hug. And I just can't help but remember hugs, not just a hug that remembers other hugs, but just that phrase just conjures that up. And I'm hoping you at the other end of this camera are going back and thinking of hugs that you've had in life, those that you remember, the memorable ones. And the thing that happened to me today that allowed this poem to really echo into me is I have a grandmother who's 100 years old. She just turned 100 last year, which is pretty amazing. Outlived her daughter, outlived all of her siblings, all of her friends, pretty much. And she's in an assisted living home, and she's got dementia. And so when you're around her you're not sure exactly where she is, and you're not exactly always sure what she's talking about, what she's saying. And I hadn't seen her for a little while, and I went down to the place today because I had to look at deal with some paperwork. And I went into the visiting area, and she was by herself, but she had a little baby doll. This little baby doll, and I've seen other people in the facility before, other older women that had seemed to attach themselves to a baby doll, and I don't know how far back in the 100 years of her memory she is. I don't know who she is thinking she is holding when she's looking at this baby doll. And when I got near her, she didn't really pay any attention to me, which is unusual. Usually she does kind of recognize you're there, but she was laser focused on this little baby that she was holding, and she would pick it up and kind of hold it out, hold it out like this, sit it on the table. You can move around and just play with it and boop the heads and kind of hug it and love it. And what was really amazing in the idea of remembering a hug that remembers hugs is watching her look at this little baby doll and seeing in her face, like in her eyes and in her smile and in her manner, this thing that I remember from when I was a little kid up until I don't know how old I must have been before she stopped looking at you that way. But just watching her with this doll and seeing that face, it was just like I could remember seeing that face come at me, and the way that she was tenderly playing with this baby, remembering that kind of embrace and that kind of care and that kind of thing that happened when I was really small. And it was this amazing little gift to have witnessed, because you don't often see that in life, especially with your grandparents, if you're lucky enough to still have some or have grown up with them, to get to a point where you're old enough to see that reflected. And I guess I don't have kids, so I imagine if you have kids, you see your parents then, behaving with your own children, your own babies, your own little ones, and you might have that similar type of experience where you're watching them look at your kids the same way that they might have looked at you, and have that sort of beat of recognition and that sort of memory, that sort of feeling of remembrance and of closeness, and seeing a parent care for, or a grandparent care for a child in the way that your own parent might have cared for you or in this case, the way my grandparents cared for me, was just an amazing thing. And I just can't help but think of like a hug that remembers other hugs, that my grandma, in wherever her mind is, she's got this hug and this touch and this embrace that remembers what it was like to hold a real baby and interact with a real child. And somehow that memory is making this little doll come alive for her and give her the feedback that she remembers. Because it was very, very tender and very warm to watch this happen. And this gift of remembering can come at us in a lot of different ways, in a different, that was just something that happened to me today. And there's a lot of fine poems in this issue of Whales Haiku Journal, and I would strongly urge you reading, clicking the link and going and checking out the latest issue. It's a really good one. But this one really held a special place for me. And then, I think, like I said, the hugs are kind of a human thing. And whether you've had them in your life, we've all at least experienced some good ones and some bad ones, or have longed for them, perhaps, if they've been absent, or are huggers ourselves and can't get enough of them. Yeah. Earl Livings, thank you for this poem. It was truly a gift for me today, and thank you for tuning in. I hope it's taken you some good places yourself in your own life, made you think about some good hugs from some good people. If you feel like sharing them, leave a comment. It is fun to read those, and I know others read those as well. And that's going to do it for Haiku Talk for today. Thanks again for tuning in, as always. Like this, give it a thumbs up if you've liked the episode. Think about subscribing if you haven't done so already. And if you've liked and subscribed, click that little bell icon so that you'll be notified when new episodes arise. I don't spam people with lots of episodes. It's about a week, every other week, somewhere in the cadence in there, and they're not terribly long. So, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, have a happy Valentine's Day, however you might celebrate that, and remember, hugs.